It's today in EVE Online, Thursday, March 12th, 2020. Joined by a few friends today. Caleb, Spods here, Insidious. Hi, guys.
I'm Nick and Prime.
Yep, Nick and Prime. But they're lurking, so it's usually the voices I want to cover that talk. But it's fine.
I'm here, but half deaf.
It's all right, Spod. You talk. I introduced you there. Okay, what do we got today? Well, a few things. One is Serenity server has gotten clearance to come back online, which is crazy considering the state of China and the world right now. But yeah, it finally passed. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We also want to talk about a huge kill that showed up on PC Gamer. Looks like it was, 50 billion, 500 billion? I don't know. We'll check it out. Huge kill, maybe one of the biggest in EVE's history. And more market news, because we want to talk about market reactions. And we're going to talk about market reactions probably every show for the next few weeks. If we have shows every few weeks. All right, but first...
Well, I'm in quarantine, so I'm ready for shows at any time.
A lot of EVE being played this year.
Let's wait to see what the PCU does while this whole thing is going on.
It's going to skyrocket.
We'll talk about the mystery strings at some point as well. The strange dust cancelled features.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up, but we could. Yeah, so Spot did some digging and found some strings from some old code, and we're going to investigate what that old code looks like and what it is possibly related to.
But it turns out a lot of that's already available on Hobo League, so I've wasted my time.
Oh well.
It's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, well, it's nice to go spelunking in code, right?
Yeah, I did find one thing, but it was not that interesting. But the dust stuff is certainly interesting, as well as some. We'll get to it when we get to it, but there's a lot of old cleanup that's just vague, interesting references to historical things that are no longer there.
Yeah, I like walking the halls of, ghosts sometimes through code. But we'll talk about that in just a second. We'll go to that first. After this statistics stuff that we do here, most violent regions. Last 24 hours, Delve is on top of 0-0 regions. Oasa is number 2. I wonder why. Those are both where ratting takes place in heavy amounts. So they're probably disruption campaigns, if anything. But definitely there's a lot of targets there. So Delve has 1,637 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And Oasa at number 2 has 1,245. Okay, in the Empire region, it's the Forge, Lone Trek, and Citadel, all at about, the Forge is at 3,200 ships destroyed. And then Lone Trek and Citadel are second and third place with about 1,500 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. Most violent systems in the last 3 hours are in Oasa. There must be something going on there. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, so Oasa and Delve, again, are the most violent right now. So whatever's happening, it's still happening. We'll take this system here, RF TAC, and have a look at it on the kill board. Oof, look at all these keep stars, by the way, in the kill board. Those are all northern keep stars that were destroyed over the last weekend. But we're going to look at the system RF TAC in Oasa and see what's going on there. So it is a fraternity fleet that is fighting. Well, it looks like fraternity. Something's wrong with this kill board. Okay, so these are the kills. Let's go to losses is what we want. Well, we want overview. See the trades. But that's a lot of fraternity killing fraternity. That is confusing. Were they having like a frigate? You guys make this out for me? It's the... I'm officially confused. Same corporation killing itself, so this must be some kind of internal game. Yeah, So they must have some kind of internal contest where they're basically, it's like a free for all and they fight each other, because fraternity killing fraternity is not anything serious. They're all in the same corporation too, so it's probably just games. Okay, let's go back to the statistics. So whatever's happening in RF, oh, wait a minute. Didn't the killing is a means start today? Yeah, March 12th. It started today. Killing is a means starts today. Yeah, it's the killing spree. So those guys are fabricating skill points by killing their court mates. That's what's going on. Boy, that took a second to click in.
You're going to have some crazy kill boards, I guess.
Yeah, let's not even pay attention to those kill boards. So it's interesting. That's happening in big amounts in Oasa and Delve. And those are, again, where people care a lot about money, because they're the regions that NPC a lot. So now they're NPCing some skill points by killing each other's alts.
Yeah, this is the subsidies from CCP basically converting or injecting SP into the game for ISK. So increase the destruction numbers at the cost of SP. It's very smart.
Oh, it's interesting. But they're killing destroyers. It's not that much, but maybe over time it'll add up.
Well, it's all titanium, right? That's why it's still, you're pretty much incentivizing players to increase and pad the destruction numbers. And I'm expecting to see more of these things in the near future. Maybe not necessarily on the SP, but in general to get this destruction numbers up.
So this literally is kind of a converting minerals to skill points.
Yeah. With a sync of active player time, right?
One at a time there. Spod, you go first, and then Caleb.
I was just commenting that there's going to be some very upset Alliance diplos that have got a lot to wade through right now.
Caleb?
Well, it's just that you are basically converting raw materials plus game time into SP. It's kind of interesting.
You're right. The game time sync also. Yeah. Plus, I wonder, let's go see most active systems for ratting if they have, well, this is 24 hours, so it won't. Tomorrow we'll check the most active systems for NPCing, and let's see if some of those people that were NPCing are now just killing their alts for experience points or skill points. That would be interesting.
And it's a lot better than the login stuff, right? Just luring players to log in to get a free reward if they've just actually logged in. I think that's horrible for the ecosystem, but this is actually really good.
Yeah, well, Market Tycoon says the loser doesn't get SP, only the winner. But if you're killing your alt, you're both the winner and the loser. So you're trading your minerals on the one hand for SP on the other. That's what we were talking about. And it doesn't look like those guys are winning or losing anything, because they're literally killing each other. And this is just what's happening in Oasa in fraternity space. But I'm sure that if we look at 1DQ, I think that was the other system that has, 1DQ and Delve. Let's have a look at that on the kill board. That you have the same thing. You have TNT killing TNT. These guys are killing alts, basically. Where's Arya? He's TNT. We can talk to him about Ranger Edgeman doing the same thing. Dracarys. These guys are essentially trading minerals for skill points.
And it's everything above frigate size, right? There's like no upper limit.
Yeah. Well, actually, I thought I saw a freighter, but that was not a freighter. No, they're wasting. I don't know. Do we know how many skill points are given? Is it related to the size of the ship? Is it? Do we know the constraints at all?
I believe it's 10,000 flat rate.
What do you have to do for 10,000? Is it per ship?
I think it's just a once per day, one kill kind of thing.
Okay, so this is everybody doing it once on each character. Once per day.
It's kind of an ISK force it if you're insuring your ships before you shoot yourself.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so it's happening. Bees are killing. Everybody's killing their alts to get that get that skill point bonus. Boy, that took me a minute. I was like, why are they killing each other? Oh, they must be playing a game. All right. Let's go to, let's look at. Yeah, I think that's all that's interesting, and clearly that is enough. Let's move on to talk about something that we saw. First, let's look at the iHubs and see if there are any in danger that are interesting. Oof, there's a lot that are coming out in the next day and a half. You probably heard last night. If not, the podcast will be out today about Veil of the Silent and Tribute and some of the stuff that's going on there. We drilled in on an update there as those alliances that were unaffiliated are starting to make coalitions with each other and go after each other in meaningful ways. So there's a lot of Veil on here, as you can see. And you do have Deckline, which is, again, a cleanup effort, and other things. We'll continue to keep our eye on that in the future. Okay, the tweet fleet. The other thing we wanted to look at, and I think this is going to be an important page today, is the kills above 10 billion. Another Marshal has been destroyed from Ranger Regiment. It was destroyed by, there's Pandemic Legion, Trigger Happy. It's a culmination of different groups. Now, what that means to me is there's a group of friends that are in different alliances that work together to do blopsing, and they probably baited and caught this guy. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but it's about an 18 billion. Is that about right? Oh, no. It's about a 10 billion ISK destruction for Marshall. And so that just happened. But if we're looking here, there's a jump freighter for 19 billion. Not a big deal. You see a Hell went down in catch from the Watchman, that corporation. Fortizar, the Hard Knocks Fortizar, it looks like it was destroyed, and that's a big deal. That's a counter eviction destruction. We're going to have more on that soon to give you a wrap up of what happened in wormhole space. Huge fight happened between two groups. The Hard Knocks Inner Hell Laserhawks combination managed to destroy TDS-Cyan in their wormhole, but there was a counter eviction, and this Fortizar is a casualty of that counter eviction. And that belonged to Hard Knocks, was destroyed. We'll find out by who. Probably a combination of sympathizers of TD-SIN. Okay, and then the day before that, you had a number of Fortizars go down. Again, looks like Hard Knocks Fortizar. So that's, again, the counter eviction. And here's where... Okay, yeah, so here's... Oh, sorry, that's Hard Knocks... Yeah, Hard Knocks is getting worked. Look at this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 Fortizars getting destroyed. I think the counter eviction looks like it might have been successful. We will get you more on that. It was going to be a close one because, on the one hand, Hard Knocks was busy destroying TDSIN. The question was, would they leave that effort to go back to defend themselves? And it looks like they didn't. It looks like they continue the pressure on TDSIN. At the same time, they're getting their stuff blown up back at their wormhole. So interesting. On March 10th, that's when another Marshal was destroyed in Valor. And here's where you see the scary wormhole people's trail of destruction. You have Fortizar. That was their main Fortizar that went down on the 10th. And that was, we saw that live, actually, on Olmeca Gold's channel. I was there with him talking through that really rare look into an actual eviction. And then you see a second Fortizar. No, that's Hard Knocks. Am I reading that wrong? No, these are all victims, Hard Knocks victims. It's very interesting. Hard Knocks are really all over the place here. Oh, here it is. Okay, so March 9th, I didn't realize it was so many days ago. You see one Fortizar after another going down, all scary wormhole people. Sorry, that's TDSIN. So that's when they got destroyed on March 9th. But then the counter eviction happens beginning March 10th. And that's where you see Hard Knocks actually start to lose Fortizars. And that's why they're trading Fortizars. And those are expensive, expensive destructions because, as you can see, this might only be this. You can't see the cargo that's ejected, but all their stuff gets ejected in wormhole space. They have no asset safety that allows them to keep stuff for a fee. They lose it all to loot, so they have to evacuate it or lose it. And so the prices of these Fortizars are only 10 to 15 to 20 billion, but that's just the structure and the rigs associated with it. And of course, those are going to be nicer than usual because in wormhole space, you expect more security. So you load it with better investment, especially in the rigs. The problem is the loot isn't calculated here. And that's where you'll get into the several hundred billions in loot drops from people losing their equipment. Okay, so all that happened in the last 3 days. Those are big, big kills. Now I'm hunting for a freighter that died because, again, we heard in PC Gamer that there was a freighter that died. It's like 500 billion lost. So I want to check that out.
It was an Orca if you were struggling to find it.
Say that again?
It was an Orca. Somebody was hauling blueprints in an Orca, I believe.
Oh, it was an Orca. Oh, the artwork was wrong then. I didn't realize it was an Orca. Okay, let's look for an Orca then. Thanks, that helps. I was going to look for Ansonar. Oh, and it could have been, I think it was a recent kill. So, oh, here it is, 150 billion. That's a huge kill for an Orca. I doubt there's two of them, so this must be it. All right, so it wasn't 500 billion. It was $5,000 in US dollars. So it was 150 billion loss in, of all places, Udama, which is a choke point between trade hubs. That is a very dangerous system. It is in high sec, but you will still get ganked, and Orcas are incredibly slow. So you don't want to put through there with expensive stuff like this. And an Orca is more secure. Yeah, here's all the blueprints. Look at that. I don't know.
I believe he had a Tech 2 original, or maybe two of them, which is where a lot of the value came from.
Well, I see Obelisk blueprint for 14 billion, but that, I don't know why it would rate that high. Well, here's 100 million blueprint.
There will be some blueprints that are probably not valued on Killboard because they're just not commonly available and not easily priceable. And those would be the Tech 2 originals, which are the ones given out years and years ago, which are like gold dust these days.
Well, on paper, this is a massive loss. Normally, you don't, you can expect a 5 to 15 billion loss plus the jump freighter. So maybe that's 25 billion to sometimes 30 billion. That's a big loss with a jump freighter or moving stuff. This was an Orca, so you don't even factor in the price, the 10 billion worth of ISK for a jump freighter, because an Orca is much less expensive. So this is all loot that fell, and it's not 10 or 20 or even 40 billion. It's 150 billion. So there's a huge, huge loss in cargo, mostly blueprints. I don't know how these are priced, and that's what's tricky about this kill, because you don't know the research value. Every blueprint has a base price, but then its value goes up as it gets researched, because then you've put time into researching it that you can't get back. And that's where the value kicks in. But I don't know if these third-party tools take into account how much value is on those things. But this guy lost his whole production, his whole production line here.
Well, there's too many BPOs in existence, so usually you can end up getting research BPOs at NPC price. So
yeah,
it's fine just using the NPC price, because the competitive edge, of course, on some prints are nice, especially the big and long researches. But in general, you actually need to value it below NPC price because you can't get rid of them. You won't be able to sell them.
Yeah, so this thing was ganked by a group called Aggressively Average. So, but that's probably some name for a group thrown together just to gank, and that's exactly what happened to this guy. Ganked in a slow ship, very highly armored though. Orcas are hard to bring down, but not for a group of gankers, especially when they're using the battle cruisers that are basically gunboats. They have the same DPS as battleships because they can fit the large guns on there. So it's a pretty ugly loss. Let's see if I can get a little more information on it. Here is the article. Thank you, Ralos, that showed up on PC Gamer. And this is where it describes the loss. And I looked at the picture and thought, oh, okay, it must be a jump freighter of some sort. But the article is not accurate. That's not a jump freight. That's not an Orca there in the picture. And I didn't bother to read all of this. So, but yeah, it was 150 billion ISK in in-game currency.
Hey, Fonsui.
Fonsui, how you doing?
All right. I saw this and this makes me so sad. I figured I had to chime in.
I did read that the guy doesn't want to talk about it, so he's pretty broken up about it, I think, or I don't know. But apparently, if you ask him, he has some choice words for you.
Well, the subtitle is kind of inaccurate. It says nearly 16 years of effort up in smoke because of one bad decision, but that's not true. It's 16 years of effort up in smoke because of never learning to play Eve. It is a series of bad decisions. It is a pattern of bad decisions. There are a lot of players who display this, and it's sad that it happened and everything. It's sad that this was allowed to happen, but these players will slowly but surely get weeded out. This happened because the guy spent all his time in nullsec, and he was safe, but then he went to the big city where things are actually dangerous, and he got popped instantly. He got popped immediately, and he just wasn't ready. He was never prepared for it.
So those of you that are relatively new to Eve should understand that gankers can cut through anything, and I mean anything. I have an alt that uses a jump freighter with high grade implants. That's the highest amount of buffer tank you can get, and it can get up to 1 million. And I still worry that that thing can get smoked by Taloses, which is what killed this thing. So it doesn't matter what you're in. What matters is what you carry. So you want to carry something that, now sometimes lunatics are out there just to gank to be for fun, and they just want to take away an expensive ship. But what you want to do is you want to ISK insulate your losses by carrying only 800 million to 1 billion in goods any one time, because it makes it not worth their while.
That is important, but the most important takeaway here is the degree of decision making here, the degree of poor decision making. Those blueprints, that all the value is in the prints, like all of the lost value is in the prints, and all of 100% of those prints would have fit in a very, very well scouted interceptor. And that could have flown all the way to Jita, way faster, way safer, way easier. Like, this is not one bad decision. This is a total lack of understanding of the entire game, the whole ecosystem, what you can do, what you need to do, what's going to kill you, who's out there, what they want. Like, this guy didn't play Eve.
Yeah. And exactly. The thing about carrying blueprints is it's essentially paper, and you can put it all in a tiny ship that is much faster to align. And in high sec, they can't really get you in with I think even a shuttle, but much less an interceptor. You're just way too fast for them to lock and shoot. So the only way those interceptors go down is with smart bombing, which they can do in nullsec, but they can't do that in high sec. So you would have been much better off with a fast, small frigate to carry all this paper.
I can promise you they can do regularly catch interceptors and shuttles carrying blueprints through high sec using smart bombs.
using smart bombs in high sec?
Yeah, well,
Wow.
I know the downside is you'll immediately get concorded, but I don't care if I get your shiny loot.
Yeah, there's smart bombs in high sec, there's smart bombs in low sec, all that stuff. That's why you take an interceptor, you tank it all the way, you make it a malediction, you tank it all the way up, and you scout the hell out of the route.
Mhm.
Like if you're carrying, what this guy was carrying, Tech 2 BPOs, like they're estimating at 500 billion. It's more than that.
Okay.
It's probably way more than 500
A
billion.
couple follow-ups on that.
To be honest, I think you could have outsourced this job at 1 to 2% cost to any of the shipping groups,
Yeah.
and you would have completely
Or
at
that.
zero.
Right.
Yeah, that, you know what Caleb just said? If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, try hiring an amateur.
Okay, so
No, but seriously, this is such a good deal for the shipping guys, right? These things, if you talk to them in private, because they might worry a little bit about the fact that you might want it almost fully collateralized, but still, this is just such a good deal because it's for the professionals. This is so easy to move, but for an amateur, this is what happens.
right. So let's talk about that a second because I want to give the tips on how you would move something like this. Like first of all, you could hire it out to other players that you do it as a service, and they would do it for you worry-free. Second, what you could do is you could break up this giant collection into several trips with small ships and move those across, and that way you mitigate your losses should any one of them get picked off. The other thing is smart bombing and even using a macro to insta-lock ships is very rare because they would have to know that you're carrying something valuable to begin with and then target you and say, that's the guy, get him. They wouldn't do it randomly. They certainly wouldn't randomly smart bomb. Sure, you could get unlucky and get that one random smart bomb that happens, but smart bombing in high sec will get whoever smart bombing instantly targeted and killed. And so that you're not going to use that usually you're not going to use that.
Smart bombs are found in low sec very commonly.
Yes, in low sec. I don't know. This guy was killed in Udama though. That's in high
Oh,
sec.
he was in high sec, but I was saying
Yeah,
you can even have an interceptor in low sec, even with smart bombs, and still be fine if you just scout.
Right. This kind of a collection, if it's valuable to you, you want to either jump freighter it. That way you just jump over all the dangerous systems. Or you want to have professionals move it. That's probably the best way to do something like that.
And why go through Uedama? Like,
Yeah. Udama had...
Of all the places you want to make sure you avoid, that's one. Don't go through there if you're shipping them out.
Well,
like,
especially in an Orca. Like, that's such a slow ship. It's slower than a freighter.
This individual clearly had no clue. He was well out of his depth.
About this. He might be an expert in other things.
Yeah, we can pick apart, all of his mistakes, but it's like we're just pointing at an individual that was completely and totally out of his lane.
Yeah, Q Manthgrade also says another thing that's important is you can courier wrap this. By the way, do they still double wrap? Do they allow you to double wrap?
You can, but that makes you a target.
Oh, people just suspect something valuable's in there? Okay. Well, there's ways of obscuring your cargo, so even a cargo scanner would not be able to see what you're carrying, and that makes them have to calculate the risks of ganking you and getting destroyed, their fleet destroyed, for something that's not worth the return. But if they see a bunch of blueprints, they may just want to make you miserable and kill you. So sometimes you want to obscure your cargo by wrapping it in a courier package. That keeps it obscure. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have to double wrap it, which is a little complicated. You have to wrap a package and then give it to someone else to wrap a package, and you've got it double wrapped. And at that point, they can't scan it down and know what's in your cargo.
I think one thing that gets underestimated is the fact that there's scanners everywhere. When you go through any of the popular systems and you see a heron and a bantam on the gate, they're not sitting there AFK doing nothing. They are scanning every single ship that goes past, no matter how fast it is. They are scanning you. They know what you've got, and they can guess where you're going. So
100%.
This Orca was dead the moment he undocked.
He was dead several jumps before he died, and you can see this if you simply watch your overview and that heron that Spod was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch it go yellow on you every single time.
Yeah. So if
the thing you get used to, sorry,
go ahead.
I just want to make a last little point. I haul hundreds of jumps every day. And the thing you get used to, there's a particular little noise because they all use passive targeting systems, so you don't know you've been scanned. But if you get used to it, you hear this very particular little whirring click sound, which is a sound effect of your cargo scanner going off.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. So you can actually
if you listen out for it, you'll hear it.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's
you can
an audio
hear when you're
clue.
being scanned. That's neat. Yeah. I love that.
If you want to test it out, just undock from Jita in a Tech 1 hauler and just wait a few seconds and you'll hear the nice noise.
Yeah. So look, assume that you're being monitored. We're not dumping on this guy, right? He could be an expert in many other facets of the game. But in this particular thing, hauling isn't just moving something from one end to the other. There's a lot of tricks in evasive actions and precautions you can take to make sure that you are safe. And if you're carrying something extremely expensive, understand you're in a vulnerable position there, and you should probably let other people move it for you, or you should take precautions yourself. So in this case, we're giving you ideas on how to move things and what to expect when you're hauling, especially through trade hubs and routes that a lot of merchants will use. And one of those things is that expect that you're always monitored. And if you get good enough, you can hear the actual audible signal that's saying somebody is scanning you, because ships can do two things. One is they can scan your cargo, and you'll see a little yellow box appear around somebody. They're not shooting you or targeting you, but they're doing something to you. They're scanning your cargo to see what you're carrying. Right.
If they're using the passive, then you won't see it.
I'm getting to the second part of that. And so you can see the yellow box unless they use a module that disguises that yellow box, so you can't even see that. So they have that option, and they will use it. So you have to listen for that audible sound to know that you're being scanned. And if you don't hear it, then you didn't know you got scanned. Just assume you're always scanned, especially on those merchant routes. And if you're traveling in a slow ship, especially AFK, but not necessarily only AFK, then you're really up for grabs, because you are going to be moving a lot slower with a lot more chances to be intercepted. So AFK is another thing you need to do, not do when you're trying to move stuff that's expensive or valuable to you. When you should, on the other hand, use what I would do if I were moving things. I would move less expensive things in a freighter, and I would AFK it so I didn't have to sit there the whole time, so it's a slow process. But I would keep the value under 800 million. And that way, if they kill you, it's just for fun, which is rare. Not rare, but rarer, or more rare. And
that's not realistic at all. You're moving 500 billion worth. You're basically just saying that he should have split it up into 750 runs. That makes no sense.
Not for this guy. I'm saying if I'm moving minerals or something big, I would.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is about 1 billion, right? When you're moving stuff, especially through that choke point. But when you're interested in moving this much, very low bulk, so it's a really high value per cubic meter, right? You need to contact the professionals and just make a deal with them instead, because I would never move something like this myself, ever.
I would, and I have very expensive originals, but I use a fast ship. I'm at the keys, and I will. I think I just use an interceptor, but I'm probably going to stop doing that now that you guys have warned me about all this stuff.
Well, it is possible. You can split it into 10, and then you've even lowered your risk a lot, especially if you move them almost at the same time. You're lowering their chance to actually take out all of them, right? So there's many ways around it. It's just, even to people that know this stuff, when you're on these scales, talk to the professionals. It's just so much safer.
Yeah. I know they can insta-lock interceptors too. It's rare. I've never had it happen to me, and I've moved stuff a lot. I'm not recommending it anymore, but I think it's rare to have an insta-lock, especially against an interceptor these days.
Insta-lock is a very specific situation. It is usually planned. No one just has insta-lock by mistake. If that happens, it's because it was planned. They may even have remote sensor boosters on grid to get that. So it's going to be on stations, on high sec, low sec transition gates in very specific places is where it's going to happen. Or if they know exactly who you are, exactly where you're going, exactly how you're getting there, and exactly when that's going to be, then there may be an insta-locker there. But those are pretty much the only scenarios where you're going to find that. It's hard enough to get that it's that rare.
Yeah.
So all you do is you scout it out. You don't do this with one tune. If you want to do this yourself, then yeah, you get 3 or 4 interceptors, you split your cargo into all of them except one, and you send one ahead. And if there's no smart bombs and you don't see anything fishy going on, then you continue with the others one at a time.
Yeah. I have been picked off.
And seriously, consider, if you're moving stuff like this, consider trying to actually find a route that avoids the choke point of Uedama, because that's pretty much where these people live. So why not go the long run?
For this big, you go around. I'll go through Uedama all the time. I'll be careful and everything, but like this is, I think 500 billion is inaccurate, to be quite frank. This was worth more.
It was 150 billion, but it could have been worth more. We don't know what the research is on these BPOs, so it could be a lot more.
Yeah. Well, there was an EOS and a Retribution original in there specifically. Those were the 2 Tech 2 BPOs.
Oh my God.
2 Tech 2 blueprints went up in smoke.
Oh my God, that hurts. Those are incredibly rare.
Did you not fully read the list in the killmail matter all?
No, I didn't. I
am disappointed. Yeah. For a kill like this, no, the first thing I looked for in that was Tech 2 BPOs, and that's a Retribution and an EOS.
Yeah. No, I have been busy trying to avoid a virus. Just kidding. Yeah, I didn't read it, but that is a lot. Yeah, that's probably a lot more than 150 billion. But yeah, that hurts just to think about. T2s are very rare. They're not as powerful as they were before, but they are still considerable. And especially now that we're heading into an era of shortages, that BPO would save you a lot of trouble.
All of these prints, the entire collection of prints was in one can. The one can did not drop.
Oh, so they just evaporated. Oof. Well, that's good. I mean, at least they're not still out there. We want more scarcity, right? Because if everybody's losing their stuff, your stuff becomes more valuable. What a big hit. Oh my God. This hurts to think about.
Just a quick example of the danger of the smart bombs in high sec. I've seen examples of where they would sit on the undock scanning people, and they would have an application tied to their clipboard. So they have to keep hitting Control C, and now light, green light or red light. Once the light goes green because it's evaluated the value as worth killing, they tab over to another character loaded with smart bombs and hit the button. And they do that all on the G2 undock.
Okay, I'm trying to read some of the comments here. They're coming fast and furious by people who have advice. There's a show that we did called Space Truckers. Look it up, talkinginstations.com. Look up Space Truckers. We did a whole show on moving stuff and what that business is kind of like.
I also want to reinforce what Caleb was saying. Like, once you get to a certain value level, calling in the professionals makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I think Eve has a lot of that, where you are stepping over a chasm and it's only 3 or 4 feet. Should you accidentally slip or something go wrong, you're going to fall 1,000 feet. So it seems like just a little hop, but the danger is you could lose everything, like this guy did. So it's hard to say, well, just in case I can't jump 4 feet, I'm going to go ahead and farm this out to somebody else and pay money. And that doesn't sound appealing, but it's really the best in a situation like this. Yeah.
And that's a healthy ecosystem mechanic where you have professionals who are good at a specific area of expertise in the game, and that actually has real value, real applicable value that players should go to. It's not just role play. Like, you don't go to the space truckers because, space trucking is fun. You do it because you don't want your shit to blow up.
Well, I do it because I support service corps as much as possible. I love the idea of people playing the game in a different way. So I kind of like that novelty and I want to support it. So it's kind of like a donation. But
I didn't mean to use the goofy voice in a dismissive way. It is in fact cool. Space trucking is cool. And I'm glad that it also has real, actual ISK, economy applicability.
Yeah, I think so. One of the issues with EVE Online is because we're such min-maxers, right? It's probably why we're interested in this game to begin with, is that we want to maximize profits and minimize expense. But if you could regulate yourself to say, look, 15% is enough. I don't need the 30%. If you could do that 15% and start farming out a lot of stuff, it might be more interesting gameplay and you're still making money for yourself.
Losing your stuff is bad min-maxing.
Well, yeah,
that's
you never,
greed.
but you never think you're going to lose your stuff.
Right. I'm just saying, like, greed is a min-max pitfall, and it's a common one. So don't fall into it.
It's just hard to make that decision beforehand. It's like paying for insurance. It doesn't feel very good, but the fact is, when you need insurance, and if you have a good insurance company, it feels great to have mitigated the loss. Okay, so yeah, redfrog.org. There's another one, SpaceX, or no, not SpaceX. That's real life.
PushX
also. Yeah, they sponsored the show a few times. Garrick, I think. Well, I shouldn't say who's involved with that, but I was going to say who's behind it, but I don't think I should. Nice guy. Anyway, so Red Frog or any of the frogs, there's 3 different types of frogs. They're all the same company, are great. And so is PushX, so check that out. Yeah, if Elon needs stuff moved, he uses SpaceX.
So Pleasure Dome is saying that guy was betrayed. And that may or may not be true, but like, I don't care if one of the people in the know literally dimed on him. That guy made bad enough decisions that sooner or later he was going to get popped.
Oh, the guy moving the stuff got betrayed.
Yeah, like he said that guy should reevaluate his friends because one of them gave the gankers a heads up, and that may or may not be true. But like, sooner or later, that dude was going down with all of his stuff.
Yeah. I just don't think you're not being sneaky moving it in Orca. Orca is slower than a freighter. And it's a suspicious ship to be moving, like you're going to look into an Orca. So even if people hadn't been tipped off, I'm not a ganker, but if I was, I'd be like, well, it's an Orca. It's, let's have a look inside. Why would it be moving? And unless it was empty, I would be like, So it's suspicious all around. Yeah, and they align so slow. Orca, you can tank it, but
actually are much quicker than freighters if you use it right.
Other point of note, he did reevaluate his friends. He left the corp.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he's on to better things. He can rebuild. This is a game where you rebuild yourself 2 or 3 times in your career. It's very normal to lose everything. All right. Anything else on that? I like what you said, though, and I'll just reiterate it. This is not one bad decision. It's a series of bad decisions based on probably ignorance. We're not good at every aspect of the game. Nobody is. So some of the most efficient people in one sector of the game are really out of their element in a different one. And it's interesting how it can bite you, how something so simple can bite you. Okay, so what else did we want to look at? There's the ship kill, 150 on paper, but probably more than that. And that happened yesterday. Or the day before, actually. Okay, so those are the big kills. Now for the announcements. It's a big announcement today. It's not out yet. I don't expect it will be for another few hours, but the Serenity server is approved to come back online.
That's really exciting. Especially because apparently they're doing it with NetEase, so that means that they are going to do that with NetEase, and of course these echoes. So very interesting.
That's actually coming back. Yeah. When is it coming back?
I don't.
Someone said, I think it was Steve that said that to be allowed to do stuff like that in China, you need to go through some hoops
Yes.
to get approved, and they are in the approval phase right now. And since it's NetEase, I'm almost going to call that it's going to be semi-automatic. It's just about who's going to need to be greased and shit like that.
By the way, that article that we talked about with the giant kill was written by PC Gamer, written by Stephen Mesner, who writes a lot about EVE Online. I can't find that article now. I must have accidentally closed it. And Stephen Mesner is a friend. We talked about this. And it's interesting the way China works. And he explained this to me in Las Vegas when we were talking about Serenity, that there are two different like gaming commissions that approve games, and they compete with one another. So if you get approval from one that's friendly towards you, the other one will look down on that and maybe not approve it. And unless both approve, the game doesn't go through. And so they get into territorial wars like that. So that's maybe one of the reasons, we're speculating, one of the reasons may have been that a Korean company bought CCP in the middle of this Serenity approval process, and China may have said, like, we have different agreements with Korea than we do Europe. Therefore, we're going to hold this up until we figure out what we want to do with it. And it's very interesting. All that global trade stuff comes into play when getting approval for a Serenity EVE Online to come up.
You said stuff, I hear dysfunction.
Well, yeah, I don't know how to, it's not my culture, so I'm not in it and I can't really judge it, maybe even if I was in it. But it's interesting from the outside to kind of speculate about all the moving parts that it takes to get clearance for a game to go up. Technically, I'm sure they were ready a long time ago. It really seemed to be an approval process, although they were not commenting on what was going on, or even that there was a holdup. They really wanted to make sure, at least in Vegas, that we weren't going too far when we talked about Serenity being held up. They kind of wanted to do a no comment on it instead. But here it is. It looks like this announcement says the approval process has been reached, which is an interesting time because if you think about it, commerce in China right now must be hit hard by viral lockdowns that are happening worldwide, especially in China and now Italy. It's unprecedented in Europe, but all of Italy is kind of locked down. And I think that's coming to more places. So I wonder if this isn't an effort. I'm way, way on a limb here, but I wonder if this isn't an effort to open up some stuff in the shadows of China being like criticized as the assembly line that's come to a halt. Do you know what I mean? Because one of the things that China was saying, or maybe a few weeks ago, is like, we're back online. And I think that was supposed to tell the world that, you know, we're going to be able to produce the stuff that you want to produce here, because that's a big part of their economy. And so I wonder if they aren't like taking a look at things that they could allow. I'm totally this
sort of work can be done entirely by quarantined individuals, basically.
Yeah, but this may have been approved like weeks ago, and the announcement's only coming out now. By the way, the English language announcement isn't coming out for a few hours, but you'll probably see something soon from CCP on it. This was found by a player, showed it to us, and that's how it was brought to our attention. Well, no, okay, so that's the real world part of it. The in-game part of it is even more interesting because we've just seen a major war essentially won by the addition of Fraternity to PanFam. So you have PandaFam, right? And that was enough to sweep out Dead Coalition in the north and essentially destroy them. And then you see the rise of Ranger Regiment, and you see the rise of Army of Mango. And you see the augmentation of Fraternity, and these Chinese groups are becoming very powerful with Triple V and MSN up there with Fraternity. Is this going to have an impact on that?
Well, what is supposed to be the state of Serenity when it comes online? Is it supposed to be as it was when it went offline?
I'm pretty sure they're going to reset everything.
I think they're going to reset
it. Day zero? Like, how far back are we talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, day zero. completely
So this
reset.
so this is big news. Like, I want to play on Serenity now.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? How many people that came from Serenity to our server is going to migrate back, and how many are going to say, well, we've invested too much time and effort in TQ already, we're going to stay. So there's just going to be a whole shakeup, especially because there might be a lot of players like you that says, oh, I want to try and play at day 0.
When was Serenity first established? First opened to the public? Because
we can look.
however long ago that was, that's how long it's been since there was a fresh, publicly available EVE Online universe available in existence. This is an unprecedented event.
Serenity, all that data is wiped, unfortunately. So, at least from here.
Yeah.
But I will read. Let me read
is-
something from that press release that's in Chinese, I believe, or Mandarin. For a better game experience, our EVE team is doing the final adjustment and optimization for the game, and we'll try our best to reunite Capsuleers of New Eden very soon. Again, Serenity is not online now, but people are preparing for it because it looks like it's going to be online. It's imminent.
Well, I am very interested in how this plays out. Again, we haven't seen something like this in however long it's been since Serenity was brand new.
Yeah, and if it's a blank
We
slate,
may never again.
we don't actually know if it's a blank slate. We are assuming it's a blank slate, but regardless, groups like Army of Mango are reconstituting. They were, I believe, PIBC, the winners of Serenity, or the pacifiers of Serenity, and they are reconstituting in a big way to jump on this. So it's going to be pretty dramatic, and I wonder what effect it'll have on Tranquility. Will PCU drop?
I think for the novelty alone, that CCP will be doing a complete day 0 thing, because that alone pulls so much interest and attention and creates hype. So if they don't do that, I'd be very surprised, especially because it's going to be run in collusion with NetEase, right? So this is exactly what they want, and they want the 2 tracks in China. So they have Echoes and this, and then they can pretty much do the whole cross-feeding in China by itself. So it's a huge move, I think. I'm just interested in seeing how different are the 2 servers going to be, right? How much of what we have and gets patched on TQ is going to go on Serenity, and how are they going to start differentiating them? Because they need to differentiate some of the things because of the rules in China, right?
Yeah. Another little hint here, like what version would they start at? One of the things CCP was doing with the old Serenity server is giving patches to them late. So they were really about a year behind. That started to improve. But this time...
To be clear,
yeah.
CCP wasn't giving it to them late.
Oh.
That was internal. That was their own business. CCP would have loved if they would have kept that up to date.
Thank you. Good point. But in any case, the players were about a year behind, or 6 months to a year behind, as far as features and what version of EVE they were playing. But if you look at the artwork and you look at some of the announcements CCP made about NetEase and them taking it over, you're going to have a parallel experience. So whatever is in the game for Western players will be in the game for Eastern players too. And what you see on the screen, the reason I say look at the artwork is that is a mining... what do they call those? Mining complex, a moon mining complex. So,
and can we just say that just from a business point of view, this is actually a little bit of brilliance from CCP, and they might actually be making a fuck ton of money finally.
Yeah.
Well, because the cross feeding is going to be huge, right? As Echo progress and gets more and more users, they will naturally start funneling into something like a new Serenity server, and I would be surprised if it doesn't end up being maybe the same size as TQ.
Yeah, it really, it depends. A lot of, by the way, a lot of the Chinese players that you're seeing on Tranquility never played on Serenity. So a lot of them have always played on Tranquility. Some some probably have, but it's a lot of work for them to probably use VPNs to get out from behind whatever
So what I think
limitations
may
they
change
have.
now is that those Chinese players that chose tranquility from the start now have an option that is promised to be more technically viable and stable, and also is potentially starting from zero or scaled back to some degree. These are two very tempting things for that player that never played on Serenity before.
Yeah. So I think this will have an impact on Tranquility. I don't know what that impact will be right now. I do feel like the last few years have made us a lot more aware and a lot closer to Serenity than we were in the past. For instance, in the times of BTAC R, one of the biggest battles of EVE Online's history, one of the most notable, that's 2014 January. A few days later, the Chinese server, Serenity, had a much bigger fight. And that wasn't well reported at all for Western players. So they were having a parallel existence that we really weren't connected to. But I think now we're a lot closer to Chinese players than we were before.
Yeah, the cross pollination between TQ and Serenity oriented players is also growing a lot, right? I think that dawned on me when Jintan told me that there's a guy in China translating all his videos.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
And then just having something like Serenity actually grow in a meaningful way and getting proper brand penetration in China is just potentially going to cross pollinate the whole Aussie time zone, because I think that will potentially bring more of the non-China server players to actually try out EVE on TQ.
Yeah. This is a big deal. I can't really wrap my head around how much it's going to impact. It's hard to say, but it is a big deal. I think we'll spend some time maybe with some Chinese players, ask them what they think of this, and I don't mean like people like Naros who never played on Serenity. I'm talking about other players. Check in with them to see like how big a deal this is. Pretty cool. All right. So look for that. What's the last thing we wanted to talk about? Markets. Woohoo, markets. Again, we'll be talking about markets for a while because it's gone through a big change. What's now we looked at some of the comments that people left on.
Oh my god, the threat note is
Yeah.
crazy, and
What's
the
going on?
salt is real.
What do you want to know, Matt?
Well,
There's
let's-
like one or two guys in the thread that's pretty much trying to defend and explain the feature changes to all these people that feel like their gameplay has been destroyed. And I will say, in their defense, I do think that maybe the modification price is a little bit extreme, and they might want to tweak that a little bit, because in an ideal world, you do want some sort of competition on modifications. So maybe they should revisit that one and see if they can't take it down a notch to not be that hardcore.
Yeah, this what's this?
I think the point more of is it's here, you know. So we can all talk about balance for days on end, but the fact of the matter is the change is here, and that I think that's really more of the important goal to look at.
Yeah, but the point is that what they're pretty much saying, all of them, is that this modification fee makes them not want to play the whole market games play at all. And it's a bit of a double whammy, because you have the meaningful number increment thing, which basically incentivizes meaningful modifications by itself. So having that and the high cost to actually modify is a bit of a double nerf, and one would be enough, or at least balance them out a little bit.
I have said this before,
I can
and I
see
will
that.
say it again many times. If you play just one game inside EVE, you're going to quit EVE because your game's going to go away. don't do just one thing because your gameplay is going to get destroyed. Everything changes sooner or later. This entire game, and I'm going to literally like quote myself. Like, I wake up with the same EVE Online client as everybody else every day. The more things I can do with it that day, better than other people that day, means how hard I win that day. So if you do just one thing and you rely on that one thing, good luck.
Yeah, but in their defense again, right? We talked about this yesterday, Francois, where we talked about the fact that there's pretty much going to be three different ways of trading: the daily, the weekly, and the monthly, right? So high frequency trading, short positions, and long positions, and they've kind of over nerfed day trading a little bit, and I think they could tweak the modification price to be less extreme, because then even though you can say that, well, everyone that has only one way of playing the game, but marketeers usually trend towards a little bit of all three types of gameplay when they start maturing, and completely nerfing day trading and the very fast competitiveness is a little bit sad, because that's actually kind of fun, and it's fun to be called a bot like 3 times in a day.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something that can be done here. I wonder if the initial adjustment is too high, maybe having it be low and then having it ramp fairly quickly. That way, you can day trade, but understand that like the faster you go, the faster you're going to hit that ceiling. So be careful.
And it's still a benefit, right? If it's fairly cheap to modify, or at least a lot cheaper than it is right now, then you're still forcing people to stay locked in, right? Because if they've already paid the now rather high initial broker fee, they don't want to cancel that order. And if modifications are a little bit cheaper, they definitely don't want to cancel those orders. So you're effectively locking in their positions when they are forced to only use modifications. And I think that's actually a healthy design. So I would actually tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, a lot of the initial reactions are shock and
and panic and rage.
That's pretty normal.
The usual stuff. But
yeah.
But there's people answering each other here too. One guy saying like, "You didn't warn us this was coming," and another guy quotes March 10th, market change.
Yeah, no, we totally knew that this was coming.
Yeah, so I think that there's not everybody is correct in their information. They are only working with what they know. So a lot of people know less than others. So you will have misinformation. So be aware that when players are writing about something, that they may not have all the details.
So there's a window that pops up when something new gets added. So like, I don't know if you guys saw the one that the needlejack filaments were entered. When you entered the game, there's this window that popped up that said new needlejack filament things, right? Well, they could also do a thing with patches like that, right? So like if they announce changes that are going to be coming, they can do a little window like that says new updates coming in blah blah blah, and that I think will remove a lot of the lack of information, because if you log in and get a little ping like in your face that says, hey, there's this thing happening, then most people will pay attention.
Yeah, and in that whole genre, I'd like to say that EVE today, when it comes to informing players of what's actually going on, is so much better than it was just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The information you get in the launcher, the pop-ups, all of these things, CCP are really getting good at that, and I really hope that they keep going and improve that. And just from what with dopamine and the dev block changes, I think they are on the right track. It's really looking good. I just hope they do a little bit more video and news oriented material like they do with the what's it called, the Pulse.
Yeah, let me actually grab the EVE client to see what they announce on the EVE client, because well, I want to see if it's there, which I think it is. And for some reason I can't reach. All right, well, really odd.
And personally, I have not seen that much volume change, really. The actual finished and concluded sales volume seems to be pretty much what they've always been. So it's really just the competition and the feeling of what's changed. There's no real data to support their arguing in their why.
This does exactly what I expected it to, because I literally ran into this issue where I was running faction warfare, and I thought, you know what? I have some LP. I cashed it out for a large shield extender, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go sell it on the market now, and I'm like, So I check the price, and the sell is pretty good. The buy is crap. I'll lose money if I go to the buy. I'm like, okay, so I'll just put up a sell order, and then I put up the sell order, and I notice that I'm gonna be losing like 2 to 3 mil, and I'm like, whoa. And it's at this point that I realized that the system is actually working correctly, where I, as somebody who does not deal with markets, who has no skills put into the markets on that character at least, should not be putting up a sell order. I should be going to buy orders. That said, the buy orders haven't particularly caught up yet, so, but it's doing its job, and it's doing its job really well, maybe too well. So,
well, yeah. So it bears out that, and who said that? I want to thank them. That it is on the, of course, the patch notes are there, and like Nightmare Moo, I guess, said it. So did Rezix.
Can we just take a moment to just appreciate how nice the launcher is actually these days?
The launcher is really nice these days.
Launcher's very nice.
That's
They really delivered, and they've been working on it and tweaking it for years, and it's been crap. But now it's actually really good.
Also, I now know all of Matterall's accounts, but that's not the point.
Yeah, right. The one thing I want out of the launcher right now, more than anything else, is for the update system to be better. Because right now, what I've noticed is often updates will simply just not go through. Like I'll have the game client closed, the launcher open, sitting, waiting. Downtime comes, downtime goes. I sit, I wait. Launcher does nothing, never updates the game. I have to close it and open it to get it to check, which is what it was supposed to do anyway. So that's one issue. Another is that it can't update the game client while the game client is running. We understand. However, what you can do is download, stage, and queue the update instead of just throwing an error at me and me not knowing when that error was thrown. So those are the things, if anyone's listening, please change that in the launcher and everybody will love you for it.
So what Matt has here is an extended version of the launcher, so you can like drag it out to the left and to the right, and you'll see the different updates that come. If that gets smaller, I would just like to see, because like you see on the single packs and the skilling is just a means, I would like to have those little arrows on the bottom right. I would like to see that in the patch notes and the Oasis Faith skins. That way I can jump back and forth if the launcher is a little bit more compressed. But aside from that,
yeah, you just have this little thing here.
You have to extend the launcher to see the patch notes because they added the Oasis Faith skin.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be a hierarchy except the sort order is date. Mm-hmm. So things aren't.
So I would just like to see little arrows if it's compressed. This is anyway completely inconsequential to the current thing that we were talking about. We were on markets,
but you have those arrows if you scroll through them, and they do it automatically too. So.
I don't see it.
I don't see a scroll arrow.
By the Eve Pulse, right? If you
No. I'm talking about like the Oasis Faith and the patch notes. You have to extend the launcher to the left and to the right to be able to see those. If you compress the launcher far enough, you don't see it.
Yeah, but it cycles in the first one too, doesn't it?
No. Select
it doesn't.
Special ones to cycle through there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a mistake. And the other one with the update thing, I think that's really a rights issue, isn't it? You need admin rights on the launcher to get rid of all that. I think Software was pointing it out that it also hangs on his clients when it does the updates. So there's a few things that need to be a little bit tweaked, and maybe a dev blog post that explains what you can do to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Either way. We were on markets, not UI.
That's all right. This is important stuff too. Okay, back to the markets. I don't know if there's much to talk about here. I think a lot of the wait and see is still happening, and that may be why people aren't trading as rapidly as they were.
Well, just to mention that, as far as I can tell, the volumes traded on RMT items are pretty much what you would expect. They are similar to what they've been for the last week or so. So nothing's really changed in the finalized trades. So it's really just about competition and where people are. The market order numbers are also pretty much the same as they've always been. So I haven't seen any massive changes there yet either. So I just say to the people that claim that, oh, the market is slowing down and everything is changing. Well, you're going to have to wait a week and then show me the proof, because I'm not seeing this yet.
Yeah, you know, you're not going to see, well, okay, and normally I don't want to be a Me Too kind of person, but you're not going to see changes to the market the next day. That's just unrealistic, because everybody, when there's a big change, whether it be on the market or in mechanics, is going to sit back and wait and see how things settle out before they make investments. Not necessarily doctrines, because you can actually theorize those beforehand and then try them out. So that might happen quickly on a change to mechanics. But when it comes to market, minerals, all the stuff that takes time to work through, you're not going to see a crazy rush, with the exception of buying spikes because people have theorized that there's going to be a shortage, so they buy everything up. That you will see right away, but not these kinds of changes. These are much longer term changes.
Yeah, I'm seeing some weird shenanigans when it comes to tier side. Some people are trying to, I don't know exactly if it's manipulation or if it's just trying to stockpile or whatever, or trying to force the price to be at a certain point in the future. But something is definitely happening in most of those. And I think it's pretty much because they're speculating that we're going to get a second and third round of tier side very soon.
Yeah,
Potentially, yeah.
Well, there is a small softening of Plex volume being traded. Again, that can be for different reasons, but you have, again, these are weekend prices here, 1.5, 1.4, and then during the week, it obviously goes lower, less people trading and online in general, to 1.4, and then yesterday 1.2.
Those fluctuations are perfectly normal. I don't see anything that makes me want to scream, "Oh my God, stuff's happening!"
Right. We hit less than that a few days ago on February 26th, 1.13.
So nothing to panic about yet.
Yeah. So
and even though Fonsu is now muted, he was talking about the whole thing about splitting them out into other regions and starting to see some servicing of Plex and RMT trade in secondary hubs and tertiary hubs. It's eventually going to happen. It's just it moves slow, and then you got the fallout of all the drama and salt that makes a lot of potential new traders that would take up the job of actually creating these secondary markets. They are not going to do it, so it's going to take a little bit longer, I think.
Somebody's asking if you're a professional trader.
I kind of was when I was on the way to actually become a banker, but the people that work in banking, not the nicest bunch. So
very different people. Yeah.
I think actually Dirk McGurk might have been affiliated with trading.
So. Yeah, he was in the profession in real life. I think he used to be in New York. No, he's in New York.
Manhattan, New York City.
Yeah, but he was in London, in the actual city. That is the real city.
Let's not try to get into London versus New York as far as financial sectors are concerned.
That is the real place to be if you're doing serious trading. That's the city.
Okay, Mr. Gates.
if nothing else, then just because the square mile culture is just so much more fun and nerdy than downtown.
I'll agree. It is very different in
you're just walking around, and it's just this, you have this square mile where it's only the bankers and the financial guys, and it's almost like a ghetto. And then just on the outskirts, you start getting all of the legal stuff in the lawyers' court, and it's such a weird phenomenon to see. It's awesome.
Financial sectors are.
It's one of the reasons I wanted to get into the business, but it's way too cutthroat, and the people are horrible.
Well, any industry that pulls a lot of interest is going to be like that. If you get involved with film, if you get involved with politics, it's the same. The people are incredibly driven, but also, I don't know.
Finances are crazy.
Not the highest quality.
You know, Yeah, I mean, but finance is crazy because you have debt, right? And debt's crazy. So it's a different kind of crazy. I'll put it that way. It's not a crazy. It's just a different kind. But yeah, no, these changes. It's kind of hard, man. It's hard to put like something down onto the table and say, yeah, these are good, these are bad. I don't know about the complaints. I don't see them as being like a lot of the people I don't recognize. A lot of the people that I do recognize aren't too scared about this. So, I don't know who's complaining more. I don't think these are market traders. I think these are industrialists.
Yeah,
Really.
and from my sampling, every single like serious trade. Of course, there's a few comments with the people that really like the high frequency trade that are complaining a little bit about the whole modification game thing, which was, as I said, fun, and many traders like it. But in general, most serious trader people that I've talked to all like this and say this is actually good and it's something that we should have had long ago.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting. The more experienced traders, this isn't a big deal. It slows it down. It makes it more specialized, which makes them more valuable. So that's a good thing for them. I think a lot of the complaints that I've seen are from names that I haven't heard from. That doesn't mean they're not good at this and this isn't their profession, but it could be people who do it.
They're definitely newer.
Well, newer, or they do it as a side or something like that.
Yeah.
And people forget that when we get these kind of changes, right, bottlenecks and scarcity and depletion and nerfing, it's actually not, in the long run, to these specialists, it's actually a good thing. The fact that they have been basically working their ass off for nothing and for peanuts is a joke. Whether you're a miner or a wormhole specialist or an industrialist, when you get these bottlenecks, your job is now valuable again. And it will be something that you will notice when we move forward. Suddenly, you can be very specialized and dedicated to only that kind of work because you're going to see better margins, you're going to see better markups and all these things, and you're going to see increases in values, especially in local markets of things like mining. So I don't understand why these people are whining. They are getting something that's actually benefiting them down the line.
A couple things come to mind. One is, it's what Fonsway was just saying. If you're only playing one game in EVE Online, you're going to quit the game when that's nerfed. So people play 3 to 4. So you're an industrialist, but you're also a trader because you need to buy supplies and figure out how to do that for cheap. And also you need to figure out how to sell the stuff that you don't give to your corporation or alliance. So there's intermixing that people want to cover themselves instead of farming that out. Because again, trust is a problem in this game, especially when it comes to ISK that can be just confiscated, liquidated, and stolen. So working together has to be done in a very smart way, and that's hard to figure out. So people just do it themselves. And so you have multiple professions. On the other hand, it is important to feel good about being good at something. That's what keeps you in the game too. And so you need to have some kind of speciality that other people can rely on. And then if you're a person with integrity, it feels great to be able to have strangers approach you to say, can you do a thing for me? And then you could do that.
Just to piggyback, you could almost say that it is very likely that the guy that just lost his entire blueprint collection shipping it might actually have been doing so exactly because he saw that that kind of speciality is potentially going to be valid very soon. So maybe he was just moving it to actually move it to the TTT complex.
I have a specific update regarding this exact issue. I was in Urslog's chat, and someone in that guy's corp is giving us some additional information that we didn't have before. Basically, he confirmed what had been said in other places. He said essentially the guy is like 63, didn't really want help, kind of just does his own thing, obviously didn't know what he was up to, and he was moving it, to help people. He was going to make copies for the corp there, either TTT or G or whatever. So he was just doing his standard thing. Like, I'm just going to, I don't worry about ISK. The corp needs this. I have this stuff. I'm going to bring it here, make copies, give it to the corp. I pay my Omega. I do this. I do that. Nobody really ganks me. I live out in Null. And then he went through Udama.
Well, lesson learned.
Well, hopefully he sticks with it and rebuilds.
And I'd just like to say that I am very much looking forward to what's going to happen from CCP the next few weeks, because if I'm not mistaken, the third ingredient should be hitting us soonish, and that's the industry patch, right? We are expecting to see something change when it comes to industry and how industry is handled in structures and in NPC stations. Mm-hmm. And that will really make it worthwhile to be in industry again, I hope.
Yeah. So we hear that the guy left the game, but everybody leaves the game. You might return after you cool off.
To finalize on the market stuff, one of the things I just wanted to say is, having been in competitive video game scenes for a long time, it's one of those things where people may say that, like day trading or fast trading or scalping is dead. What I say to that is, I don't think so. I just think we haven't found a way to do it yet. I think that the rules have changed, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that the gameplay style is gone. It just means that you're going to have to do it in a different way. So I think that it is still completely possible to do the fast-paced thing that we used to do. It's just that we have to do it in a very different way. That may or may not be something that we discover today, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now. But I think somebody will find a way. Because this is just, somebody's going to go through the mechanics. Somebody's going to really learn their shit when it comes to their stuff when it comes to this. And then, they're going to figure it out. And when they do, everybody's just going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, so we do it like this now. And, you'll see that kind of return in a very different way.
Okay. Well, that's all we got time for today. Last comments, Caleb Fonsoy?
Well, I'd just like to point out that if or rather when they eventually get around to fixing the infinite slots on industry, what you will see is that people will finally go back to the whole, well, maybe I should outsource some of the work I'm doing instead of this whole traditional, I do everything myself in the entire production pipeline, which is horrible.
What does fixing slots mean to you?
Well, it means that instead of me saying, okay, I want to build this item, say it's just something like a T2 item.
Wait, not the effects of it. People don't know what you mean by fixing slots.
Okay. In the past, slots were limited, so you could actually plug them, and then they added a queue system, so you had to actually wait for a slot to clear. And then eventually, when they brought out structures, they just made the slots infinite, so there was never a bottleneck anymore in industry slot building or research. So I understand why they did it. It's just that they didn't add anything in there to then limit that, because they basically took a scarce resource and made it completely abundant, right? So now there is no value in having a structure with industry slots.
I don't think you broke it down far enough, so let me just make sure that everybody's on board, so when you talk about it, people understand what the hell you're talking about. And that is, a long time ago in high sec and in low sec, but we'll talk about null sec separately in low sec, you had to use a structure in order to research, in order to copy, in order to build. And the research and copying, and I think building as well, all had bottlenecked in that you could only do 20 or 30 things, build things at a time on any station, much less research, because research would take months. So you might see those labs filled.
The structure itself between all players that were using it.
Yes, exactly. The structure. So in other words, if Caleb and I were in the same structure and there were only 40 slots to build something and he took 30, I only had the option of taking 10. Now multiply that by 50 or 60 people in the same station and you get the idea that things get bottlenecked and production can only move at a certain pace. So when they, and if you were not wanting to use those facilities, you could put up a pause, and each pause would have an array, but you would have to put an array for a certain building thing. So I could put an array to build drones, but then I could put an array to build small frigates, and then I'd have to put a different array to build battleships. Those are 3 different arrays, and they would take up all the power.
But that was mostly for bonuses, right?
It was also for access. It was also for access, especially for research. That's why you had labs that you would put in a pause, and you would get your 10 slots there, but those were private to you, so you could actually use them. But now you're paying fuel cost, And if your pause gets destroyed, so do your blueprints, et cetera, et cetera. So there were risks that created bottlenecks, which meant that production moved at a slower pace. Now, when new structures came into the game, which was about now 4 years ago, the building slots across the board became unlimited. And all of a sudden,
So now
anyone
everyone can just
build
use
whenever.
an alt and just scale with alts and serial building, or rather parallel production.
One more thing One more thing I'd like to add, and I'll come back to you, and that is, consider this. They opened up mining. They created a Rorqual that could mine like a monster, just a ton of minerals. They opened up building slots, which allowed anybody to build anywhere as much as they wanted to. And those two things together, unlimited minerals and unlimited building, created a flood of cheap ships to fight in. It also created, as a byproduct, a flood of T1 super carriers and Titans, because those are T1. They don't need specialized materials that could bottleneck. And that is part of the problem that we've seen over the last few years develop. There's an abundance of ships, and that was good for activity because they figure if it's cheap, you'll just fight in it and not care if it blows up and fight again, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've done that. And what's happened is a lot of people have said nothing's worth anything anyway, so why should we fight? So the motivation to fight came down. That was one of the byproducts. So in reverse of that, they're creating scarcity. And what you're saying, Caleb, is at some point, they're going to put the bottleneck back into production to slow that down, creating even more value for items that do exist. I think that's what you're saying.
Either they're going to do a sort of a hard limit, so something akin to going back to the queuing system, because right now we have the solution. The solution is publicly rented slots. That means that you're going to get a price competition. People will compete on where they build and what they rent out the slots for, right? This is what we asked for in the transition from POS to structure, because that was what was missing in the POS system. You couldn't use your friend's POS unless he actually almost gave it to you, right? So it was just a bad system. Now we have the solution. So why not utilize it and figure out how to do it? I suspect that to make it easy for CCP, they're going to do something that looks like a Band-Aid and basically just make it a price system. So the price to use slots are going to get explosive. So they then incentivize you to move on to player-owned structures, which does work. It's just that makes it a little bit too easy for people to make mistakes if they actually don't know how the system works.
That is a prediction. We don't know if they're going to do it, but we assume it makes good sense to do it. But it is a prediction. They haven't stated anything along these lines. But
it's because the problem that you just described is the whole, if I mine it, it's free. If I build it, it's free. And if I sell it myself, it's free. You're not outsourcing at any of these points because all these mechanics have made it so easy to get the feeling that things are free. So people seriously don't understand opportunity cost, and CCP has kind of removed the impact of opportunity cost.
Anything that destroys the my math mindset, I am behind, because people need to be punished for that because it's wrong-headed. And until now, they're able to get away with it. But I should clarify. So I say my math, and that's an acronym. It's MIMAF. Minerals I mine are free.
You broke up.
And
say it again.
Sorry, it's MIMAF. Minerals I mine are free. And this is a wrong-headed notion that excludes the concept of opportunity cost. Essentially, I have item in my possession, I have asset in my possession, or I have currency in my possession. I have one of these two things. And the value of that item and the value of that currency is what I'm capable of doing with it. And people ignore that, and they act as if the only thing I could do with it, is build it into this ship. When that would create profit enough to buy the ship that they want to build and have additional currency left over or assets left over, and they ignore this, and they ignore this, and their rallying cry is minerals I mine are free. So the new system that is more punishing will, when there is, in times of bounty, in times of glut, everything works. So people assume that their thing is working, even though there's no evidence of that. And it is in times of scarcity when things cease, when the bad systems cease to work, and the chaff is winnowed away. And I think that this minerals I mine are free mindset will be punished heavily.
Okay. So there's our alarm. It's time to go. All right, we are going to raid Urslaw. I can say his name. Can you say his name?
Urschlag?
Urschlag.
Urschlag, yeah.
Urschlag, yeah.
Return the favor from yesterday, so check him out. I want to say thanks to Caleb Fonsway, Lichgrave, Spot, who was here earlier, and everybody else who sat in station lurking with us. That's all from our Talking in Stations group here. Hang out with us all day long on Talking in Stations Discord. You can find it through talkinginstations.com. We will see you in Public 1. For now, hang out for Urschlag. Thanks, guys.
Subject because sucks. I've been holding on to that one for a while. What's your Val?
Star Trek. All right, we'll see you guys.
Yeah. I do actually have. I can key off what Lichgrave said.
Hold on. Let me stop the stream.